people seem to think that, like calling someone a fascist is just like not a slur, but like a kind of a way to discredit the ideas of someone else, as if it's not an actual ideology. Sanzetta says, I wish more people called me a fascist when I was in that pipeline. Yeah, I wonder. I was never called a fascist, ever, even if I was in that pipeline. I wish I could be a fascist again and to see how it feels to be called a fascist. Do I reject it? Does it make me research fascism and see if it actually makes sense? Do I reject it, but subconsciously it still ruminates in my head? I don't know. I was never called a fascist when I was in that pipeline, when I was sliding down the pipeline. I wish I could be fascist again. Quote by Germinal. I genuinely think it can be good to understand or to like get what's going on. I read a book about how nationalism in Quebec has become more and more identitarian. I would say personally like more and more fasci, and I fell into that. But I didn't have I didn't really have the knowledge to look at how I felt about the world. And now that I can see myself a bit further, like from a different perspective. Well, now it's hard to know what was going on in my head. Anyway, I hope it made sense when I said I wish I could be a fascist again. We're slipping and sliding down the fascist pipeline. Yeah, that was me. Wait, you were a fascist? One of my first segments on stream was about how I wouldn't identify myself as a fascist. I never did. I never said that. I never said that to anyone. I never to my friends or my family or anything. It's just fucking funny now I'm looking back at it. I remember watching this one movie about the rise of Hitler, the Nazi Party. And I really thought it was fucking cool. I was like, yeah, sure, genocide is not good and like anti-Semitism is bad, but like the unity and the passion that these men all share together around like a symbol and around like ranks and around, that kind of discipline that they all have towards a common cause. I was like, that's so fucking cool. I need that in my life. I would want something like that, but not like Nazis. I would like something different, but I find that so cool. I like the aesthetics of it. And I remember that one movie that was supposed to be like showing how Hitler is fucking bad and showing how, the rise in power of Hitler and like how he's not a great guy made me think that's fucking cool. So Mr. Germinal would definitely vote for 100% Hitler. Back then, with how I felt when I was like 16 or 17. I remember still being in high school. I think I would have, of course, voted for Hitler. Absolutely. I think people really need to have some self-awareness when it comes to, would I have been for slavery? Would I have been for segregation? Right? Most people today is like, I would have been against slavery. I would have been against segregation. And it's like, well, you're a product of your environment. And considering your position compared to other people's positions in your current environment, we can definitely deduce that your positions in that context, whether it's slavery or segregation or whatever it is, you would take the bad position. Come on, we both know it. But these people have no idea. They have no self-awareness when it comes to their positions and their historical continuity with decisions of the past. I'm fine with saying that, I would have been, when I was like 16 years old, I would have been like, okay, you know what, we're just going to stop it here. You get my point though. Lopsided says, it's really strange how the label of fascist has started to be treated lightly, if that makes sense. When people hear the term fascist, they automatically dismiss it, and it makes for really unproductive discourse because one side simply refuses to accept that some people are fascist. Yeah, even fascists will deny that they're fascist themselves. I think that fascism has been linked to such a historical context, which is the 40s, 30s, 40s in Europe, that people can't even imagine the same kind of ideology and the same kind of of ideas and values to be transposed in our context. I think that might be one of the problems. And it's not like, I'm trying to find like the best way to not ascribe malice to it, right? Because there's also the malice of actually being a fascist and just dismissing that as slander instead of actually doing introspection, which is not necessarily malice either. The imagery is really cool. Aspiring Nazi terminal. Yes, I mean, I think it's one of the appeals of fascism is the aesthetics. Yeah, Pyranarchist, this is why Jojo Rabbit is the best anti-Nazi movie out there. Yeah, because they don't glorify or make the Nazis look cool. I understand the appeal or the artistic appeal of showing that the Nazis looked cool, because in the sense that the Nazis, you as a viewer, you can never empathize with the Nazis, and therefore you can never understand their point from a German perspective in a way. But like, if we keep showing like the Nazis as these evil people and all that, the thing is, we fail to recognize that you can have fascists who do have mass appeal without being like mustache twirling evil fascists, if that makes sense. I think that's one of the problems we have. Maybe that's one of the reasons why people don't associate with fascism or discredit the label fascism. It's because we've associated so much to pure evil with mustache twirling evil. And the thing is, you look at people who are politicians, who are looking good, who are putting a lot of time, who actually believe in the ideas that they're saying, harmful ideas, but they still believe it. And you have a lot of people who believe it and who aren't actually believing in it because they're evil, because they have malice, but because they're actually convinced by the arguments, or they like the appeal of maybe the aesthetics, or maybe the unity of that movement. And when you say that's actually fascist, they're like, well, no, what they believe that the appeal of that fascism had in the 30s and 40s was that it was evil. And then people just voted for evil because they were evil. But that's not what happened. And that's not how fascism gets power. It's not by saying, we are evil, join us in our conquer of the world as evil people, mwahahaha. People don't do that. People don't ascribe to those ideas. I don't think so. But that's how we've characterized fascism, because we've wanted to demonize it so much. It's not bad to want to demonize fascism, don't get me wrong. But I think that what it can do is make the very idea of fascism caricatural. It turns the idea of fascism into a caricature. So that when actual fascism comes up, we can only conceptualize a fascism as a caricature. And therefore, oh yeah, Trump, not a fascist, not actually like super evil. Yeah, he's stupid. Yeah, he has like some weird ideas sometimes and says some weird shit, but like, he's not actually wanting to I don't know, dominate the world and kill people or whatever. I hope everything I'm saying is making sense. I'm not doing some fascist apologia, I promise. Lopsided Chez says, watched Jojo Rabbit for the first time 2 days ago. I'm saying it's a good movie, right? But I haven't watched it. Yeah, I'm going to talk about a movie I didn't watch. Is that, yeah, it makes fun of Hitler and fascism without glorifying it. Yeah, that's where the conversation was. So it makes fun of Hitler and fascism without glorifying it or without demonizing it, which is good in both ways. You don't want to demonize for the reasons I said, but you don't want to glorify it. Obviously not. The only way I can think of that glorifying Hitler or Nazis can be good in an art piece is to give the perspective of someone who glorifies them in a way, to try to understand why people actually decide to go for, to root for Hitler. Like that one video or movie or documentary, it was like more of a biopic of Hitler and his rise, like the rise of Nazism and all that, is that, yeah, he's evil and all that. And I haven't watched it since I was 16 and I thought he was kind of cool. So, but you kind of like, you're like, yeah, that sounds actually kind of nice. 16-year-old me, okay? Who thought that looks kind of nice. But that kind of helps you understand why some people might be into it. You might be against everything that Hitler does or whatever, but then you see the appeal that it can have on some people. But yeah, I think making fun of it is good. Of course you liked fascist aesthetics. Fascism is nothing but aesthetics. Aesthetics are strong. Yeah. Well, it's not just aesthetics. It's also, it's like what the aesthetics embody as well, and the ideals that the aesthetic embodies. So yeah, it's just aesthetics, but you're not attracted to simply aesthetics. You're also attracted to the ideals of the aesthetic that the aesthetics convey, which is very often like unity and the attachment to either like a nation or a strong group of people with a destiny that is, that is greater than any individual. And I believe that like we want to be more than our individual. I think it's in our essence to want to do things that are greater than ourselves with other people that we feel strongly in community with. And I think that's what fascism capitalizes on. But I don't think it's the right solution. Tiltic says, bro likes the aesthetic of Nazism. I liked to the past, Tiltic. Back then. Okay? That's an important nuance. The conference humanizes head Nazis too much, I think. Yeah, it's a balance to be done, right? Humanizing Nazis. I think it's important to humanize Nazis, and that's what I was talking about earlier. And the reason why I think it's important to humanize Nazis is to show that humans can be Nazis. Because when you just show that, if you demonize Nazis, then you're kind of, maybe not, you might not be implying it, but you're kind of messaging the fact that only demons can be Nazis from the word demonize. Yeah, they sort of turn into fiction. Yeah, that's a really good way of putting it, Karmata. Demonizing Nazis kind of turns them into fiction. I don't know if that's what you meant, Karmata, but that's what I believe. And by turning it into fiction, it might be harder to apply it to reality. As in, when you humanize them, I mean, it might be a double-edged sword, right? Some people might actually think that it's valid and that it's good. It's also important to humanize them, to understand that you can fall prey to fascism. And fascism is an actual thing that happens to humans. Evil looks cool to any 14-year-old budding fascist. That is true. That is actually true. When you're 14 and edgy, you went from being fascist to communists. Aren't those basically opposites? Asked Tiltic. Good question. Have you ever heard of horseshoe theory? I'm joking, obviously. No, I think that when you're a fascist, when you're either radical, either on the left or on the right, the things that look alike between far right and far left is not in the solutions, and it's not even in the analysis of the problem, but it's in the acknowledgement of the problem and the acknowledgement of the how serious the problem is. When you're a fascist and you're willing to support an authoritarian dictatorship because you feel like it will make your life better, because life is boring and it sucks and nothing's happening, you might think that if you feel like fascism is actually kind of harmful eventually for whatever reason, even though you understand that the solutions of fascism or the final solutions of fascism are bad, what other solutions can there be to create unity among human beings and be happier and bond back with community and find purpose? Well, it's not going to be liberalism. It's not going to be capitalism, because you might already understand that these things are kind of problematic and might be at the source of your problems. So you might look into communism. Maybe.